All right, Liz Wheeler Show, episode 421, take one. Hannah Claire Brimelow is with me today on the show. Hannah Claire is a writer at timcast.com. You probably recognize her because the last couple times that I've appeared on Tim Pool's IRL show, she sat right next to me. She's a regular cast member on IRL. Hannah Claire, thank you for joining me. It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fun to be sort of in your neck of the woods, so to speak, and be on your show.
That's right. Because it's been opposite the other couple of times. So I had a fun idea for us today. Instead of talking about news of the day, I thought we would talk about what people in our industry, in media and politics and culture often do off camera. And that is kind of compare and contrast controversial opinions. It's sort of actually like what university campuses were supposed to be, where you're supposed to take edgy positions and kind of debate and dissect them. Mm-hmm. Of course, campuses aren't like that anymore, but I thought it would be fun if we compared and contrasted our controversial opinions. So just for the audience's edification, what Hannah Claire and I did to prepare for this before the show is I wrote 5 of my most controversial opinions. Hannah Claire wrote 5 of her most controversial opinions. We did not look at each other's list. I have no idea what's on Hannah's list. She has no idea what's on mine. And I thought that we would compare. I don't know if they're going to be similar. Maybe we'll disagree with each other, but I thought it would be fun to discuss. So let me lead off, because I think once you hear this one, you will feel no qualm about sharing edgy opinions, because this is okay. Perhaps my edgiest opinion. Hey guys, I regret to inform you that this section is censored, thanks to the YouTube overlords and our effort not to get permanently booted from YouTube after getting a strike and getting demonetized. You can head over to Rumble or Locals, though. This content is available for free on both Rumble and Locals. You can catch the full uncensored episode there. I'll see you over there. And by the way, guys, I do like your emails, even the ones where you're contradicting me. Sometimes those are the most interesting ones, so send them along. All right, that's my number 1 most controversial opinion. Hit me with yours, Hannah Claire.
Okay. I loved this idea, by the way, except all of my opinions are extremely rational and not controversial. Everyone should think like me. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe that's my controversial opinion. No, my first one is, and I realize that there are going to be some cons here, but I think the right needs to embrace reality TV if they really want to win the culture war. I think that we have these moments where we see it, because if I say, when was the last time you saw a conservative family on television? I know what you're going to say, and it's 19 Kids and Counting, it's the Duggars, and that is not the vibe, I think we need to be, in some ways, pursuing whoever occupies the space of trashy reality television.
All right, guys, let's talk about Provia. Are you one of the millions of American men and women of any age dealing with premature hair thinning or hair loss? Or maybe you're just scared about inheriting that thinning look because it runs in your family. Well, finally, there is a real solution that delivers on its promise without the harsh side effects, without the unwanted chemicals, and without the unpleasant smells. Thanks to our friends, actually, that developed Genucel Skincare, Provia uses a safe and natural ingredient called Procapil to effectively target the 3 main causes of premature hair thinning and loss. By supporting healthy scalp circulation, the delivery of nourishing nutrients, and healthy hair follicle anchoring to your scalp, Provia guarantees more hair on your head than in the shower or on your comb. It's effective for men and women of any age, safe on color, treated, and styled hair. It really is that easy. And right now, new customers save over 50% off Provia's introductory package at proviahair.com/Liz. Every package includes a full 30-day supply of Provia serum for daily use, plus Provia 30 super concentrates for faster and more noticeable results. Provia works, guaranteed, or 100% of your money back. See results for yourself right now. Don't wait. Go to proviahair.com/Liz. proviahair.com/Liz.
Obviously, I hope you guys aren't trashy. I hope you guys don't have your drama out. But, one of my favorite segments that you have done recently is talking about how the Kardashians, there is the drama, there is the glitz, but ultimately they are selling family. And I think there are moments when conservative-leaning people could occupy the space. I mean, I did not watch it, but I know what happened in this season of Vanderpump Rules simply by existing on Instagram in my age demographic. Where is the right-leaning media company to occupy the space and subtly sneak in better values to culture? This is the tool that we don't have.
No, this is fascinating. First of all, this is an idea you should pitch to Tim, because your guys' house where you film seems like the perfect place for a reality TV show, a right-leaning reality.
It'll be like The Office, but weirder.
Yes, exactly. This is correct because you bring up the Duggars, which is a really interesting point, because the problem with what the Duggars did, aside from the sex abuse and the scandals and the religious cult, aside from all of that, is, and this is an error that a lot of conservatives make, actually. They reject pop culture because pop culture's influences are bad and destructive. I mean, I reject pop culture for my daughter as well. But they forget that while you're shielding a child from that pop culture, you have to still fight in the trenches of pop culture. Otherwise, you're surrendering that whole area to the other side. And so we've created this like alternative culture in very conservative, very Christian circles. And the cost of that is the Kardashians are now this famous in Vanderpump Rules. But I'd probably watch a reality show of a really conservative family. I know growing up, we didn't have scandal like the Kardashians, obviously, because we were normal, but we like to think we were pretty fun and entertaining. I think like if it's a show well done, it would be cool.
Sure, and well-educated, conservative, religiously minded people would be entertaining, right? Like, think of reality TV meets Gilmore Girls meets conservative values. I would watch that all day long, and I'm tired of, trashy people basically being able to spin off very successful businesses where conservatives tend to have these gaps. I mean, I know there are people like I can't remember the show, but they made the duck calls and.
Duck Dynasty. No, they were wildly successful.
They were wildly successful. They had some controversial moments. Some cast members went through early stages of cancel culture, right? But as far as I know, several of the children have successful brands. They are social media influencers. They tend to leave more openly devout Christian. And it's not that I'm opposed to that, but I think that we could have a reality TV show that has conservative values, doing kind of things that young conservatives might be interested in doing, that has religion without it being all about, because I know that can be sort of isolating to some young people. They want pop culture, but also they don't feel as though they are Christian enough themselves to fully immerse themselves in pop Christian culture.
Yeah. Yeah, and the point about the Kardashians, for anybody who missed that episode, it's actually the same point about The Bachelor. These are two of the most famous reality TV show franchises in history, and you don't necessarily think of them as conservative, but if you put away like the promiscuous sex and the drug and the divorce and the Kardashians, their opulent lifestyle, they're actually selling this idea of a tight-knit family where sisters are best friends and they're always having birth announcements and gender reveals and birthday parties and weddings and engagement, all these things that young women specifically, who are the primary demographic that watches their show, really want. The same with The Bachelor. I mean, The Bachelor's gotten pretty salacious. It's a lot more like a drunk frat house now than it used to be. But the idea of it is what young women want, that they want to find Mr. Right, get engaged, have a fairy tale proposal and a wedding. I think it would be great. Okay, my next controversial opinion. This is the one that whenever I post on X, formerly known as Twitter, about this, it lights it up.
R.I.P. Twitter.
My opinion is marijuana is dangerous and it should be illegal. Am I wrong?
Ooh, this is so interesting. I don't know. I think there are parts of society right now where, yes, it's totally dangerous. It's, we've got the argument that it's not addictive, but it is habit forming. People, base their entire social lives and their habits, their health around marijuana. I am skeptical of big pharma. And so there is a part of me that would like to see marijuana explored in sort of a potentially for medical use, right? But recreational marijuana is, I think, ultimately a dangerous route. I don't know that I would make it totally illegal, though, because I want to see it studied. I don't know that I trust, Purdue to be whipping up whatever they want in the lab, when I would like to see potentially more holistic or more natural options on the market.
Theoretically, I agree with you. I don't trust big pharma, and I'd like to see more plant-based things. My mind has totally changed on this topic. If you'd asked me this 5 years ago, I would have taken a very libertarian stance. I would have been like, well, I mean, it's not like meth, right? It's not like fentanyl. Like, if people want to be potheads, I don't endorse that. I think it's a waste of life, but whatever. Like, how is it different than alcohol? It kind of like the classic conservative libertarian position. But then I read Alex Berenson's book. You guys all know Alex Berenson. We talked to him a ton about his reporting on COVID. But before he wrote on COVID, he wrote a book about marijuana. And the premise of this book is he's married to an emergency room physician who would come home and tell him that her basically psychotic patients were all on marijuana, and that there was definitely a link between psychosis and marijuana. And he scoffed at her to the point that he was like, I'm going to do the research, I'm going to dig into here, and I'm going to prove you wrong. And what he did is he accidentally proved himself wrong. He dived into all these studies, and he found that there are links between marijuana use and psychosis, psychotic breaks, between marijuana use and schizophrenia, between marijuana use and violent crime. Really, really horrendous stuff. And these studies have been completely discarded by the medical community, not because they're wrong, but because the medical marijuana lobby stands to profit if marijuana was normalized first as a medical remedy versus just recreational. And so once I saw those studies, I couldn't unsee them. And I was like, well, if this is as dangerous as these studies show, then it should be regulated the same way that meth is and that fentanyl is.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I think research is the key to most things, and unfortunately we don't get accurate numbers. And schizophrenia, especially for young men, tends to hit in their late teens or early 20s. And that tends to be, I'm totally going anecdotally here, but when people start using marijuana the most, right? So people who are at risk of a schizophrenic break, it would bear out, would be adversely more at risk if they started using marijuana, but they're never informed of these risks because we don't tend to acknowledge it. And I will say, I grew up in a rural part of Connecticut, and I had great upbringing. It's a nice area, but our school nurse told me after I graduated that the number one issue that they battled was heroin addiction, which is not completely uncommon. I went to school with like less than 400 kids. It was very small, but one of the big issues was that marijuana was less, or that heroin was less expensive than marijuana in the area a lot of the time. And that has to do with like drug trafficking and stuff like that. And so if you are a depressed teenager, which how could you not be in today's America where you're told that, you'll never be able to buy a house, you'll never be able to do anything. I don't think that making marijuana recreational would necessarily stop you from potentially going for the next big high, and that's the danger. I don't like to simplify it to marijuana as the gateway drug, but it opens the door for not dealing with your mental health issues and potentially moving on to more abuse and more substance dependency.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, actually, because there's always the intentional implications of a policy and the unintended implications of a policy. And maybe one of the unintended implications of illegalizing it would be basically more trafficking, which means that it can be laced with something else. I don't know. All right, let's talk about American Hartford Gold. Is it only me, or do you also feel that the future is growing more insecure and uncertain by the day? I mean, we're paying more at every turn, and yet we're getting less for our money because we're facing record high inflation, soaring interest rates, and what seems to be a looming recession that is going to threaten our businesses, our jobs, and yes, even our retirement funds. In fact, even the Fed chair, Powell, warned us that we should brace for more pain, which means this isn't going anywhere. It's not going away. Fortunately, there is a way to secure your hard-earned nest egg even in the face of this uncertainty. You can do what I did. Call the only precious metals dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple and easy to protect your savings and retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Again, the phone number is 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Okay, Your next controversial opinion. Lay it on us.
Okay. Well, it's sort of a question because I am not Catholic, but I ask all my favorite Catholics this. I don't understand why Catholic priests can't get married. It just seems bizarre to me and seems to not be a strength of the church. And I'm always looking for clarification. I don't know if you have an opinion on this.
I would love to give my opinion on this. Actually, one of my controversial opinions is on religion as well. So the reason Catholic priests can't be married is the same reason that a married man can't be married to more than one woman. Because when you are married to someone, you are supposed to dedicate your whole being to the service of that person, to sanctify that person, to make them holy. So like my husband is married to me and no one else, a Catholic priest has dedicated his life to essentially being married to the church, to serve that church. We also know in the Gospels that young people are told, if they can, to stay chaste and to stay single in service of God. And it's borne out. It's borne out in over now 2 millennia that this has been the way the church has done it, and this has been a good thing. Now, you can make arguments, and I know that this is a very common argument from Protestants and evangelicals. well, what about when these men aren't having sex? Doesn't this drive them towards sex abuse? Doesn't this drive them towards homosexuality in seminaries? And I don't think that bears out. I don't think if you remain a virgin or you're celibate, it drives you to be a child sex abuser. I don't think that there's a connection there.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a discernment process that the church has neglected in selecting candidates for the priesthood who struggle with these things prior to entry into seminary that could probably eliminate a lot of the problems. And I think that what used to happen in Catholic Church is there used to be a community of priests that would live together. So you always had community. You were never lonely. You were never on your own. But because there's such a priest shortage now, especially parish priests oftentimes live in an apartment by themselves, so they lack that community, which, again, I'm not saying that living by yourself and being lonely drives you to horrible sex crimes, but there is an element of community that serves as a bulwark against evil. So you'll have to count me as a traditionalist on Catholic priests being married. I can't picture, honestly, as a lifelong Catholic, I can't picture some of the holiest, most influential priests. Like, they're busy dawn to dusk. Like, they would have to cut their ministry in half, in a third, if they also had the primary duty of providing for their family and protecting their wife and children. So I don't know if that's as detailed of an answer as you're looking for, but that one, I do have to fall with the church on this.
No, I think it's so interesting. I asked James Coughlin of Freedom Tunes a similar question. He basically said, they don't have the time. They're devoted to the church, and that's where their priority needs to be. And I grew up Episcopalian, so I'm familiar with Catholicism. I have Catholic family members. I'm happy to. It's not a question of the Catholic Church, but it is a cultural. It's a specific part of the Catholic Church that I have always been really interested in, especially because we know that fewer men are seeking the priesthood. And I think it's so interesting to hear that you point towards discernment, which is, again, similar to a conversation I had with my, Irish Catholic from Chicago, Seamus Coughlin, because I think that is something that people lack in all parts of their life right now. There are so many people who are unsure of their direction. And one of the priests at the Catholic Church that my family attends now is brilliant, interesting. I could definitely understand where, he's pretty young, there's isolation. And he talks about having to decide between, this wonderful girlfriend he had and this calling that he felt. And I think it is interesting, as much as I always go back and forth on it, because, again, I grew up with priests that could get married and could have families. And I felt there was a value in living through the phases of life that your parishioners were also going through. I can see how being a representation of sacrifice and this calling are actually something that we're sort of hungry for as a culture. And so it's not something that I'm not going to topple the Catholic Church over it. I just never totally understood it, because it seems like there are other options, especially when you're trying to recruit young Catholics.
I understand that. I think one of the reasons the Catholic Church is struggling with the vocations, meaning young men aren't discerning the priesthood, is not because young men want to be married. I think young people are actually getting married in the smallest numbers ever before since it's been recorded. I don't think that it has even to do with the decision like, oh, if I'm a priest, I'm not going to have sex. If I'm married, I'll be able to have sex. I don't think it's that. I think it's that the Catholic Church has been negligent in their catechesis. They have not fostered faith in the younger generations. And it is a huge sacrifice. I mean, it's a calling, it's a vocation, it's a wonderful thing to be a priest, but it is a lifestyle that only a minority of people in our country choose to commit to. And you have to be so alive in your faith and so surrounded by a solid faith community to even lead you to the point that you can envision that as a reality, or that you can hear that calling. That I would say, and this is just my opinion thinking about this, that is where I would say the Catholic Church has been negligent in trying to foster those vocations, not because young men are like, oh shoot, I just really wanted to have sex, but as a priest you can't. I could be wrong though.
Sure. I don't know. I think there is something to be said. I don't know that it's about whether or not they can have sex. I think it's more about the sacrifice. And I see this borne out in other things. I mean, there are so many women who say, well, I'm not going to have children. I want to put it off because I want to be selfish. I don't want to have to sacrifice.
Okay, let's talk about MyBookie. We've all been there before. A weekend trip to the casino canceled because, well, real life came calling. Well, MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game. Dive into a truly realistic casino experience featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using my promo code Wheeler. That's promo code Wheeler to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. Now, that's not all, because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you will be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks. The more you play, the more you win. Play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino. Remember to use my promo code. You will enjoy a generous sign-up bonus if you use my promo code Wheeler. That's promo code Wheeler.
I think there is an aversion to personal discomfort in the pursuit of something greater. And so in that sense, I could see it, one of the reasons that having a strong priest in your community who has made that choice, and maybe you're not discerning the priesthood, maybe you're just discerning what to do with your life, and there might be sacrifice involved, is a good role model. It was one of the things that I found interesting. For a while, I knew a lot of people who were raised either, Catholic, Christian, maybe nothing, and they were all pursuing Eastern Orthodoxy. And I found this really interesting because they told me one of the things I like is that the priests can have children and that they are, they are encouraged to get married because then they are living out the life that their community is experiencing. They are parenting alongside other people, and that they're aware of those challenges. And I felt similarly growing up in an Episcopalian church. I mean, our priest, I think his son was on my brother's Little League team. And so I didn't just see him at church, I saw him in my community. But I could see, the Catholic priest that my family, goes to now, he definitely just goes to all the Christmas party. He's around all the time. So, and like everything, life is what you make of it.
It is, and I think that might be a difference in perspective from a Protestant viewpoint, a Catholic viewpoint too, is that Protestants view their ministers as a pastor, right? It's a leader of the community. He's there to preach sermons, to guide, to counsel. And Catholic priests are viewed a little bit differently. They're not there just to be living the same life beside you. They actually are holy. They're set apart.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be different than parishioners because they're supposed to act in persona Christi, which is as God's representative on earth, especially during the sacrifice of the Mass. So maybe that's somewhat of the difference as well. There actually are a couple of married Catholic priests. Father Dwight Longenecker, I don't know if you know him. He's active on conservative Twitter. He was a Protestant minister or an evangelical priest or some other denomination, some other Christian denomination. He converted to Catholicism, and that's the one exception the Catholic Church allows. If you were a priest in another Christian religion, you convert to Catholicism, you're allowed to receive holy orders and become a Catholic priest. And so he's one of the few married priests, which to me, coming from a different background than you on this, is strange to me. Like, it's hard for me to picture a priest as being married.
I'm like, they're so poaching our priests. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, let's move along to the next one. Although this is really interesting. We'll come back to religion in a minute because one of my next ones is about religion. But first, this is my next controversial opinion, that indoctrination in public schools is not bad. Conservatives often say, oh, it's in a center of indoctrination, that's bad. I don't think that that's bad. I think we should be indoctrinating children with the public school system. I think that whether indoctrination is a bad thing or a good thing depends on what is being indoctrinated. And I think something will always be indoctrinated in the public school system. It's never going to be a neutral playing field. So I think as conservatives, we should take advantage of this, use the institution of the public schools to indoctrinate students in American values and Christian values.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think you're totally right. There's no way to have a neutral public school. I mean, compare this to France, where they're a secular country, so they have basically freedom from religion, and they are struggling to keep up with all of the dress code regulations because obviously they have a growing Muslim population. And so if you're not allowed to wear a cross to school, you're not allowed to wear a yarmulke, you obviously can't wear a headscarf to school to abide by the country's original founding. In America, I think indoctrination is a scary word, and there are things that I would obviously be opposed to kids learning in public schools. But taking out, let's say gender theory or different things just leaves a vacuum for something else to fill. And that's why I would love to see indoctrination, so to speak, although I wouldn't qualify it as indoctrination, for more patriotic feelings, right? I mean, Oklahoma just okayed PragerU introducing some of their curriculum as like supplemental material. And I love that. I think that there is this desire, especially among, that middle school to high school age bracket. It's just developmentally normal for them to be seeking purpose, to be figuring out who they are as individuals, what their values are. And I would love for them to be surrounded by Christian values, or just pro-America values, values that say that this is a good country and that you are surrounded by optimism and people who are encouraging you, rather than what tends to be victimhood, anti-America. These are all the things that our founders did wrong. This is why you're weird. This is why unless you pick out crazy pronouns, no one will like you. I mean, it's a very a very trying time for young adolescents. And if we were indoctrinating them with encouragement and hope, I would be for it. Unfortunately, I just don't think that it's likely to happen in this country. I think we have a lot of powers that be that will not cede the public schools. And that's why ultimately you're going to see a continued rise in homeschooling and alternative schooling. And it's why the school choice movement is so important, because if your public school is never going to be neutral, you should find a school that is, like you're saying, indoctrinating them with values that will give them a positive and healthy lifestyle.
And by the way, you will find no bigger proponent of homeschooling than me. I think everyone, if you possibly can, homeschool your children. If you can make it work, by any means, homeschool your children. They'll be better off. I just think we should take back the word indoctrination. Like, it is not an inherently bad word. A lot of people feel like they recoil when they hear it, and we should just reclaim that. We should say, no, indoctrination is literally just teaching someone something right from wrong. Like, okay, that's great. Let's use that. Let's take that word back and take it away from the left.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the word hate crime. I just feel like I should be able to use it for anything I don't like, because it just doesn't make any sense. If you hate it, what are you talking about? You don't know what my motivations are. So indoctrination and hate crime, we'll reclaim the words.
We'll reclaim both of them. Okay, hit us with your next controversial opinion.
Okay, I think, I wrote a whole long list. It's hard to decide. I think that what happened at Burning Man over this last weekend is God testing the pagans. We're going to stick to my semi-religious theme here. I think it is so fascinating that there was this storm that apparently no one predicted at the big event with all of the anarchists and the pagans who have the Cathedral of Babel, right? That they are trying to promote an anti-Christian viewpoint, and instead they got flooded and tens of thousands of people got stuck in the mud with dwindling food and resources. Obviously, human suffering is bad. I don't encourage it, but you chose to be at a pagan, semi-anarchist event that's also filled with elitists. I wonder if God is trying to send you a message.
Let's just say I wouldn't be opposed to it if that were the case. I think that our God is a God of mercy and a God of justice. It seems to me, who am I to define justice? But it seems to me that would be relatively just. I mean, literally an altar to a pagan god. I mean, you are asking for the proverbial strike of lightning.
For sure. And also, perhaps he was protecting them from themselves, right? He made it so it was a very difficult event to carry out. Why would he do that if it wasn't for an act of mercy? I think community events are interesting, and I try not to be too your culture is bad and mine is better. Who am I to say except I'm right? But I think God doesn't like Burning Man, and I think he made that very clear.
I think we should leave that one right there. I agree with you 100%. I hadn't thought of it like that, although I did laugh. I think we did a segment on the show earlier in the week where I kind of laughed. I was like, well, as long as people aren't actually, I think there were a few people that lost their lives, and I'm sorry about that. I'm not trying to laugh at that. That's tragic.
No, that's
not. But overall, 70,000 people there, it wasn't an overall deadly event. It was a little funny to see these drug addicts and sex orgies disrupted by mud.
And these tickets are thousands of dollars, right? Like, this isn't just like a community event where we hang out. Like, it's for super wealthy people who want to cosplay as pagans for a while. Like, I'm sorry, but I just don't think that, this is the event that probably its founders wanted it to be, which maybe God is happy about that.
I would hope. You would hope he would be. Okay, here's my next one. And this one I diverge a little bit from conservatives on. I know that this is actually traditionally a more leftist opinion, although post-COVID, I think more conservatives have opened their eyes to this, and liberals have maybe become more dogmatic towards technocracy. So maybe they're moving away. But up until a couple years ago, this was a more leftist opinion. Here it is. Hey guys, I regret to inform you that this section is censored. thanks to the YouTube overlords and our effort not to get permanently booted from YouTube after getting a strike and getting demonetized. You can head over to Rumble or Locals, though. This content is available for free on both Rumble and Locals. You can catch the full uncensored episode there. I'll see you over there. Okay, hit me with your next controversial opinion.
Okay, I think that seltzer water is garbage, and I do not understand why people drink it.
Oh, I'm going to have to rate this one a total 0 out of 10, Hannah Claire. I live
Is
on.
this our first fight, Liz? Oh my gosh.
Look what I have sitting next to me right now. Look at this. This
You
isn't even a
LaCroix.
product placement. This isn't even an ad. It's a soda stream. I make my own sparkling water in my kitchen every day so that I can drink it. It's so delicious.
Why? Isn't carbonation supposed to be terrible for your teeth? Shouldn't we be moving away from fizzy beverages altogether? I think this is one of these things that it was like just a trend. I think this is something that people were like, oh, my friend drinks this and it's good and it's kind of like soda, but it's healthy. And so people pretend to like it, but no one actually likes it. They just think it's like a healthier alternative. It's like when you say something is gluten-free, people are like, oh, that makes it healthy. And you're like, no, that's not actually what that means.
I mean, I actually do like it, but I don't drink soda, to be fair. I don't drink soda. I eat pretty clean. So adding a little fruit juice to sparkling water actually does make it taste good to me. I have heard, and this is an argument against what I do, I have heard that sparkling water actually wrecks your electrolyte balance. I'm not sure how. I didn't look into it further than that, but I have heard that it's not as healthy as drinking regular water. But that has yet to stop me until my soda stream breaks.
We all have our vices, right? And I will say it's one of these things that I think is on the market to create other problems because I'm so skeptical behind seltzer water lobby. I think that if it throws off your electrolytes, I totally believe it. If it hurts your teeth, I believe it. But it's a product that they present as if it's healthy. And they say, and this happens to so much of our food, that this is something that you can have and it's nice and whatever else. Of course, everything you do in life has risk. I'm not going to shame you about your disgusting choice of beverage. I'm just kidding. But I think that this is something that was collective group think. Because I worked in this office at one point and we'd have a snack closet. And all of these people would be like, I love LaCroix. I love the coconut water LaCroix. No, that's terrible. Why would you drink that? And yet we all do it because we think it's a thing that people do. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I will say coconut is gross in anything and everything, and it should be eliminated as a flavor from all foods. Cannot stand coconut. Okay, this is my final controversial opinion of the day. This is back to religion. I think all Christians should be Catholic.
Ooh, interesting. I mean, Catholics get extra points in heaven when you convert people, right? So that makes sense to me that that would be your opinion.
So.
I'm just teasing.
Not that I'm aware of. I wish actually that would be great.
Well, you don't find out until later.
I think all Christians. Yeah, you would never know. I mean, hopefully you would just have the gratification of helping a soul get to heaven. Here's why I say this. I don't say this to trigger Protestants and evangelicals. I say this because I believe as a Catholic that the Catholic religion is the true interpretation of the Bible, the true interpretation of the church that Jesus Christ established on earth. And my biggest issue with Protestant and evangelical doctrine, and I know that there's nuances with different denominations, but my biggest issue is in the Gospel of John when Jesus is talking about he who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me and I in him. And it seems to me that Protestants and evangelicals dismiss this. They don't view it as being literal, which Jesus did when he was teaching his disciples, because some of them were revulsed by it, walked away, and he didn't correct them, which he would have had he meant it symbolically. And Protestants and evangelicals oftentimes dismiss the historical context of such a statement being literal. Because if you look at the Jewish traditions at the time, especially the Passover lamb, which is what Jesus was, the new Passover lamb, part of Passover, Passover wasn't complete until you ate the flesh of the Passover lamb. So Jesus being the new Messiah and the fulfillment of the new manna and the fulfillment of all of these Jewish prophecies, of course, was going to be in alignment with what Jews' religious experiences and religious traditions at the time were. So I feel like Protestants and evangelicals are missing a huge part of what Jesus offers us to know him and love him and serve him by not interpreting this correctly. But I'm interested to hear, because you're a Protestant evangelical, I'm interested to hear your response to this.
Yeah, well, I never even knew. I guess now I would consider myself. I don't even think I'd be considered an evangelical because I grew up Anglican, so I grew up like Church of England, which is obviously more related to the Catholic
Like
Church and a lot of
very
traditions.
classic Protestant then.
Right. And so, you know, Christianity is so interesting. I obviously believe deeply in Christianity. I am a Christian today. I go to church, and I think I've mentioned this that I have Catholic family members. My stepmom, who I'm extremely close to, is Catholic, and I are at Christmas I am at Catholic Mass, and that exposure to Catholicism has been really interesting to me because I haven't converted, so I guess I disagree with you. But I think Catholicism is strong in a way that Protestantism and even the evangelical movement as it is in modern America is not. I think that there is a culture and there is a richer text that they're able to offer that will ultimately make it so that most Americans in the U.S. and more Americans in the U.S. convert to Catholicism, in my opinion. That's my prediction. Maybe that's my hot take for you. I found it really interesting that with growing up Anglican, and again, the Mass is just much more similar than if you were to go to just your, Baptist church or anything else. That still, the church lost people. And they also were much more open to progressive ideology than any other, than the Catholic Church was. And I think that's a weakness. So my example here is always that the Church of England is consistently taking really progressive stances on issues like gay marriage and the issues of having a potentially, transgender or transgender identifying people in the clergy or serving in the church in some way. And that obviously goes against doctrine. And I think part of it is because the Anglican Church doesn't have a strong culture to back it up the way Catholicism does. So I don't know if everyone should be a Catholic. I feel like I can't commit to that opinion until I myself convert. But I will say, I think Catholicism has so much to gain that it is almost inevitable to me that more people are drawn to the religion. I mean, you can maybe name some Anglican Episcopal schools, they exist, but they are not as structured as basically Catholic schools. And then if you're in certain regions of the country, Mormon institutions tend to be very community-based. They have strong networks. And I would pick Catholicism over Mormonism. So
yeah, I think that's interesting. I also think the reason that a lot of Protestants and evangelicals are not just not Catholic, but anti-Catholic is because there was a concerted effort in our country specifically over the past 200 years to brand Catholicism as things it is not. So there's a lot of like most of the time when I'm talking to a Protestant or evangelical friend and they're making accusations against Catholicism, it's a misunderstanding. They say, oh, you worship Mary. No, we don't. You worship saints. No, we don't. You believe that good works can get you to heaven. No, we don't. It's very elementary misunderstandings of Catholic doctrine, which, in my opinion, was more or less of a political campaign to make sure for Protestants in this country to make sure that they didn't convert to Catholicism. Maybe we'll have to do a whole episode on religion sometime because it sounds like it could be an interesting episode. We're almost out of time, but hit me with your very last controversial opinion.
Okay, well, my controversial opinion is that Taylor Swift ultimately represents femininity, and she doesn't want to, but that's the way it is, and our culture craves that. And I wrote an op-ed about this for Timcast a couple weeks ago. I think that her entire career is based on traditionally female values and virtues, and she plays feminist when it'll make her money, or I wish this was true, to get feminist moms to let their daughters listen to her music, right? So I'm not just writing about boys, I'm denouncing the patriarchy. I think, I grew up with Taylor Swift's music around, we're similar ages. She was just on the radio. Even if you were not hunting out her stuff, she was around. And she talks about love. Her music is about friendship and relationship. She's obviously very perceptive, very detail-oriented. These are very feminine traits. And she is consistently talking about getting married, having children. And I think that's good. I think this idea that all female pop artists are ultimately drawn to feminism is only true on the surface. And if you look at what they are saying underneath, they are preaching, they're screaming, they're singing that they want a traditional life. They want to be married. They want to find love.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct in this. I would call Taylor Swift accidentally authentic. So even if she doesn't think that she's a traditional woman or a feminine woman, or she was trying to listen to what she wanted, her own desires, so authentically that she accidentally portrayed a traditional conservative version of womanhood, the true version of womanhood. And it's only her mind that's been captured by the ideology that's like, wait, isn't there some contradiction in this? But how can it be contradictory when this is what I'm authentically feeling, but this is what the politics tell me to believe? I think you're correct. And I think, I mean, isn't this one of the reasons why her Eras tour is so successful? Because this, like the Kardashians, is what young women want to hear.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the interesting things about her music, was that she was releasing music about a period of time that she just went through, right? So her audience who grew up alongside her hear their own heartbreak or confusion or their own desires to find a life partner or whatever else. Like these very authentic, real things that women feel, instead of being told, you know, ignore them, pursue your career, be really tough, be brittle, be like a man. We had a pop star that all along was telling us being uniquely feminine is good. And by the way, she made a ton of money off of doing this, and she's going to continue to be successful because she is selling what in a lot of women's hearts they acknowledge to be one of the big challenges of their life, finding someone to marry and start a family with.
That's right. That's right. See, I don't even know why I called these controversial opinions. These all are perfectly sane and rational opinions that we are espousing. This was really fun, Hannah Claire. Where can people find you if they want to follow you online?
They can find me on Twitter, what I guess is now called X. I'm HC Brimelow, and I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. And I, of course, really want to direct them to timcast.com. If you click on our read tab, you see my work and you see work from the other awesome journalists here. I'm really lucky to be a part of this company, especially because I got to meet you through it all. So thank you so much for having me.
That's right. That's how we became friends. Yeah, it was my pleasure. This was really fun. Guys, go to timcast.com, click on Hannah Claire Brimelow's work, follow her on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram. Thanks for being here. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.